Today, the majority of public sector unions signing the wage deal at the Public Sector Bargaining Council. You saw that ceremony live 2 hours ago. Workers are getting an increase of 1.5% and a monthly gratuity of just over R1,000. Because the majority of unions have signed this deal, it means the agreement is binding on all of the other unions. Not all of them are happy with the outcome. One of the unions that did not accept the deal is Nehawu. It's also the biggest public sector union. Its first deputy president is Mike Shingange. Mr. Shingange, good afternoon to you. Why did you not want to accept this deal?
Good afternoon, SG and your viewers. We did not accept this deal, firstly because we embarked on a 4-week physical consultation with our members, trying to get a mandate on whether or not to accept this offer by the employer. An overwhelming of our members that we have met, they've rejected this offer on a few principles. One is that for the first time in the history of the collective bargaining in the country, we are seeing the state that wants to turn the public servants to be those of the precarious workers, like those who only depend on gratuity or on the stipends, instead of having a job guarantee and also a guarantee of a basic salary. For the first time, we're having a collective agreement that is going to contain something that has got nothing to do with the baseline or that has got to do with the pension, which is what is contained in every legislation that exists in this country. But also that the state has pushed to the public the fact that there's a 1.5% that is a salary increase to the workers, which is actually a lie, because as we all know, the 8 billion that has already been budgeted for is as a result of a collective agreement that has been existing in a number of years in terms of the notch progression. So our workers could not accept something that says we've got a 1.5% salary increase as if it's an increase, while it in actual fact is an attack on the pay progression that is due to those who qualify in terms of the assessment in this public service. And of course, lastly, is that we know that this stipend is something that it's a culmination of what we have always called a collective agreement attack, that we want to erode that which we have always known as a part of a collective agreement in this country. And lastly, that we are embarking in this current round of collective bargaining at a backdrop of an employer having reneged and moved away from an existing 3-year agreement and took the workers to court. Today, the state wants to proceed and sign a new agreement, forgetting that actually the state owes its employees, and as if nothing has happened. That's one of the mandates that our members have given, and we respect those who have went on to sign because themselves have embarked on a consultation processes. But for us as Nehawu, we don't have a mandate to sign, unfortunately.
Okay, I mean, I understand the points that you make. I did think that what happened last year would come up in this. Just for the record, as I understand the process, it's now binding on you. This deal is binding on you because the majority of unions have signed it. Do you accept that?
We have always signed an agreement. In fact, in the history of Nehawu in the collective bargaining, this will be the first time that Nehawu does not sign any collective agreement. There are unions that have a history repeatedly of not signing a collective agreement, but it has always binded them. Just like there are unions who have resorted in the past to go on strike or not go on strike and benefiting from the blood and sweat of other workers. We are in that area now. We accept that the agreement now enjoys the majority. But you know that we are at the arbitration, at the conciliation level. We have declared a dispute ourselves as per the dispute resolution mechanism. We are going to conciliation on Friday. Obviously, we are going to receive a certificate of the non-resolutions. Our structures, that is the National Collective Bargaining Forum, as well as the National Executive Committee on Thursday, they are going to give us a mandate on how to do with the certificate that we have, because it doesn't mean that the fact that there's a majority unions that have signed, we do not reserve our right of continuing to pursue and voice our dissatisfaction and our disagreement with this attack on the collective bargaining of South African workers.
Okay, I hear what you say. It would seem, and Mr. Shingange, I don't think you're going to enjoy this question, but I think for some people, this might seem like a good deal. It is an increase, it's below inflation, but it's an increase. There's also a gratuity, quite an important gratuity. A lot of other people have been losing their jobs during this time. Aren't your members in quite a good place?
Maybe let's start there. There's no increase. The 1.5% is not an increase, let alone the fact that it's below inflation. It was never an increase in the first place. It's something that every time when we get an increase in the public service, the 1.5% has always been there because it's non-negotiable. We never went in this round of negotiations with the 1.5% as on the table being demanded by us, because it is given, it's part of the conditions of service that has always existed for over 15 years now. So let's get that thing clear. It's not an increase, let alone that's bio-inflation. That's why we are saying we are aggrieved that there's a lie that's been perpetuated on the public that there's an additional 1.5%. That's the first thing. The second thing is that you can't say you have got an increase when your other salary, which is a deferred salary, which is a pension that we all work for, that in the time of retirement, we're supposed to get a continuously an income, is supposed to be on a standstill for the next 3 years because of this deal. Because last year, workers have already lost a 4.5% as a result of the inflation that was, and as a result of the employer not implemented the resolution that was there. So even the one that we would say it's a gratuity, doesn't come anywhere closer when you combine this year's inflation and the inflation of last year, including the fact that this does not contribute to the pension. In other words, the pension of workers are on the state.
Mr. Shangange, I mean, I hear you, but compared to many people in the private sector, which is where, in the end, your salaries come from through tax, I mean, aren't you doing better than most people in the private sector who've lost their jobs and lost income? You at least have kept your income.
Not necessarily. Firstly, it's not like public servants themselves don't pay tax, that's number one. But number two, every time there is a job blood in this country, those who have got job securities, like the public servants, they carry the burden of the economic movement moving forward in this country. They carry the burden of taking care of those families who are not members, who are not working. But that's a one part. But secondly, what we are being plunged into by this kind of offer is that actually we're no longer going to be different from those ones in the public service. So there's no sector in this country that anymore is going to have a benefit of having a job security, who's going to have a benefit of a basic salary as a guarantee as it exists in the legislation. So it's not true that actually we are not being affected by the economic hardship of those in the private sector. So we can never be blackmailed. In fact, even if indeed we've got the precarious sectors, like you're saying in the private sector, as a country, the government as an employer of choice or an ideal employer supposed to set a standard that this is a standard upon which every employer must employ, must serve as a condition of services. You can't have a situation where we want to downgrade the rights and the benefits that workers have always had over the past 27 years to that one of being uncertainty, lack of job security, lack of basic salary, and actually precarious conditions of services. We can't have a state leading such an onslaught.
Mike Shangange, First Deputy President of Nehawu, thanks very much indeed. Well, I make the point again, the biggest public sector union not happy with the deal. Andrew